Hello everyone, welcome back to my lecture. Today I will talk about literary terms related to fiction. This particular part is from BA Part 2, Paper 4, which is the paper Prose from the Bible to Hardy. Today, in the course of this talk, I will be talking about some very important literary terms related to fiction. Okay, so without much delay, let us move to our first literary term, which is the points of view. Point of view is a term used in the theory and criticism of fiction. It is used to designate the position from which a story is told. Point of view serves to indicate author's approach to any issue or matter, may it be social, may it be political, ethical, or academic or anything else. Many single works exhibit a diversity of methods through various points of view. A narrative is generally told from a first person or third person point of view. There is one point of view called second person point of view, but that is very rare. Novels sometimes but infrequently mixes points of view. You have to understand that. There are certain examples where they are actually mixing of points of view. In the first person point of view, the narrator is often a major participant in the action and he or she refers to himself or herself as I. In this particular narrative, the points of view limits the matter to what the first person narrator knows or he or she experiences or can find out by talking to the other characters. It therefore cannot give us access to other characters' hidden thoughts. For example, there is Amy Tan's novel The Joy Luck Club or Charlotte Bronte's famous novel Jane Eyre, which is through the first person point of view. The second person point of view is very rare. In this mode, the narrator is typically addressed as you. This form of narration occurred in occasional passages of traditional fiction. I can remember one example here, which is J. McInerney's Bright Lights, Big City. But this particular type of point of view is very rare. The most common point of view which we found in fiction is the third person narrative. Third person narrative comes in two types. First one is the omniscient and the second one is the limited. In case of omniscient narrator, the narrator is someone outside the story who refers to all the characters in the story by name or he or she or it or they. Here, the omniscient narrator is a know-all person and has access to thought process of all the characters. On the other hand, an author using the limited point of view recounts the story through the eye of a single character or one or two characters. Here, the reader is aware to the inner thoughts and feelings of only one character and receives the story as the character understands and experiences it, although not in the character's own voice. So that is the main difference between first person narrative and third person limited narrative. In first person narrative, there is direct access, the direct saying of the particular character, and in the third person narrative, there is only a partial knowledge. Examples of third person narrative include Jane Austen's Emma or Charles Dickens' Bleak House. Okay, so let us move to the next literary term. Our next literary term is Bildungsroman. Now, the term Bildungsroman literally means formation novel. It refers to a novel that charts the development. What is the development here? The psychological and spiritual development of the character from childhood to the maturity. Here, the protagonist, the chief character, goes out into the world through adventure, seeking adventure, and becomes very much wise by learning from the experiences. He or she becomes wise by learning from many complex, painful and embarrassing situations in their life. Such novel ends generally on a very positive note. Matlab, it's a kind of happy ending novels, even though it may be tempered by a sense of resignation or some sense of, say, nostalgia. So there is some kind of epiphanic moment. Epiphanic moment means the moment where the person or the character actually discover himself or herself. This type of novel attracts the writer in depicting the close relationship between early influences and later character development. So there is two parts in the novel. In the beginning, there is the early influences of the external influences and the later character development. This term was first coined by the German critics, hence it is called Bildungsroman. It's a German term. One of the most famous examples of this genre is Goethe's Wilhelm Minster's Apprenticeship that Thomas Carlyle has translated into English in 1824. Other examples include Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders. It's a very famous novel. Henry Fielding's Tom Jones, Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, David Copperfield also, and George Eliot's The Mill on the Floss, etc. So, we can also find some common variations of Bildungsroman. Those are Künstlerroman, Entwicklungsroman, Erziehungsroman. Künstlerroman is a novel which traces the development of an artist from childhood to artistic maturity. A famous example of this genre is James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Entwicklungsroman is the novel of character development. Best example which comes to my mind is Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, and all. The last name, Erziehungsroman, is the novel of upbringing. For example, Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, J.K. Rowling's novel Harry Potter series, all this will come under the name Erziehungsroman. Okay, so let us move to our next literary term, which is the stream of consciousness. William James, in his Principles of Psychology, which was published in the year 1890, coined this term, stream of consciousness. It's very important, kindly listen properly. Stream of consciousness refers to the flow of inner thoughts and some kind of awareness. The order of these thoughts is determined by the psychological association, and there is no logic in it. The technique was first developed by a minor French novelist, Edouard Dujardin, in his novel Les Lauriers Short Coupes. Okay, anyway, so the increased interest in psychologies, which especially happened in the late 19th century, influenced many novelists to attempt this kind of stream of consciousness themes. Here, it actually represents the stream of impressions on characters' mind alongside their rational thought. So, the focus is not on the rational thoughts alone, rather, it's an impression of the person's mind, the characters. Stream of consciousness novel tends to focus more on the mental and emotional workings of the character than on external reality. Writers of such novel therefore found easier to write such novels through the use of the term interior monologue. The term interior monologue presents a character's thoughts, emotions, and fleeting sensations to the readers. So reader can have the access of the character's thought, emotion, and all the inner sensations. Interior monologue are used to present the narration either using the first person or, as I already talked about, third person narration. In the stream of consciousness novels, it is very important for the language used by the writers to reflect. The writer has to think of chiefly three things: the speed with which thoughts flow through the mind, okay, and sometimes the coherent way in which unexpressed thoughts remain in the mind, and the third thing is it is the manner in which thoughts expressed which can be supported or can be contrasted. The most important pioneer of stream of consciousness novel is Virginia Woolf. Woolf, in her famous novel To the Lighthouse, has expressed this particular idea of expressing the character. Joyce's Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, or Dorothy Richardson's Pilgrimage, then Nobel Prize winning writer, American writer William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury. All these are famous examples of stream of consciousness novels. Our next term related to fiction is Picaret's novel. Picaret's novel is a novel that presents the adventure of a knave. Knave means some kind of rogue person. The word picaro is a Spanish which refers to a rogue, and through his or her exploits, the author is actually provides some kind of satirical eye on the fabric of the society. So the perspective is from the perspective of the person, perspective of the rogue, and there is some kind of satirical element presented through his or her eyes. The Picaret's novel was originated in 16th century Spain, and I have mentioned the name here. The finest example of such novel is La Vida de Lazarillo de Tormes. It was published in the year 1553. Now, Picaret's novels, these are generally narrated from a first person point of view, and it has many episodes. It is episodic in structure. Here, the central character comes from a very low social class and generally lives by his or her wits rather than honest hard work. So, the character, the protagonist is not hero but an anti-hero. Okay. So, Picaros, though adopts a tricky, generally do not engage in serious criminal behavior, they are very much tricky, they are very mischievous. They make fun of people, they do certain mischievous activities, but they are not criminal. You have to keep that in mind. However, most interestingly, they do not change or grow or develop themselves in the course of the novel. Like in conventional novels, there is some kind of development of the protagonist from the beginning to the end. There is some kind of development. But in case of Picaret's novel, the nature of the character of the protagonist remains same. For the author, the hero acts as a structural device for connecting the different strands of the plot. Picaret's novels are also anti-romantic and has a direct, simple style. However, interestingly, In Spanish speaker novels and English speaker novels, the heroes are quite different. In Spanish novels, the hero leads an immortal life but bears a prospect of changing his nature and someday becomes a good person. But in English novels, the life of hero is stressed solely on the adventure and generally he or she remains same. The first and most important example which comes to my mind is Kingsley Amis' Lucky Jim. Another very important example is Don Quixote, or often we say Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. Then again, I have already mentioned Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders and Tobias Smollett's Roderick Random. These are all examples of picaresque novel. Now let us go to our next literary term. Rather, I say terms. These are flat and round characters. This is very common and I think everyone knows it. But since I am covering all the literary terms prescribed in the syllabus, so let me add it. In its most general literary sense, what is a character? In its most general literary sense, a character is a figure in literary work. So characters may be human or a non-human animals or even non-living entities, provided that the author characterizes them by giving the attributes of human attributes. So characters can be broadly classified into two types. One is flat character and other is round character. E.M. Forster, in his famous book Aspects of the Novel, which was published in 1927, makes a distinction between these two characters, flat characters and round characters. Flat characters are developed around a single idea or quality. Flat characters are also called caricatures and are easily identifiable for their predictable trait of behavior. A flat character does not change in the course of the story or play, and a flat character may be delightful in comedy but dull in tragedy because it may amuse us but unfortunately cannot move us. So some significant example of flat characters include, one famous example is from Pride and Prejudice, Mrs. Bennet, who always thinks of marrying off her daughter, whatever may it be the way, whatever may it be the procedure. Then there is Wester in Tom Jones, then Bodbury in the Hard Times, Micawber in the David Copperfield and all. Round characters, that is very much different from the stock characters or the flat characters. Round characters, in contrast with the flat characters, possess the complexity of a real person. Round characters grow and change in the course of time and are multidimensional, possessing several qualities of mind and heart. These are generally multidimensional. A round character is generally represented with the subtle particularity. A very famous example of round character is R.K. Nanan's Raju in the famous novel The Guide, or Clem Yeobright in Thomas Hardy's famous novel The Return of the Native. And from our syllabus, let me give an example. It's Elizabeth Bennet in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Okay, so let us move to the next literary term, which is epistolary novel. Now this is interesting. Epistolary novel is a work of fiction where the plot of the novel is developed through letters, whether through an exchange of letters between multiple characters, or maybe all the letters written by a single character revealing his or her inner thoughts. Okay, so this particular form allows the author to connect the viewpoints of several characters during the narrative. The popularity of letter writing from the end of 17th century due to significant reduction in the cost of postage. The postage cost of the letter writing was reduced during that time. So people started writing letters. So there is some kind of regular correspondence among people of various social classes on all matters, may it be personal or public. There was no telephone that time, remember. So people used to communicate themselves with letters. So the art of letter writing becomes socially very much important, and many wanted to learn it. Now this is interesting. Many people wanted to learn the art of letter writing. So at this time, there are two booksellers. It's a very good story actually. Two booksellers asked Samuel Richardson, he was the famous novelist, to bring out a popular guide to letter writing. This eventually led Richardson writing his first epistolary novel, Pamela, which was published in the year 1740. So, thus we know why Richardson has wrote Pamela. This form has a sense of immediacy as the character appears to be sharing their private thoughts to the letters. Okay, so the letters add to the dimension of the plot by allowing several points of view. However, it has some disadvantages as well. This kind of novel, the letter writing takes it to some kind of impossible level, and the correspondent, he is engaged in noting down everything, and this generally makes the novel very long. Suppose the character is writing everything whatever he or she has done throughout the day and writing the entire thing through letters, then obviously the size of the novel will remain growing. So this kind of technique of novel writing was primarily used for the sentimental novels, but it has also been successfully used by various tragedies. For example, Richardson's Clarissa. Then there are some picaresque novels like Smollett's Humphrey Clinker. Then Fanny Burney's Evelina. All these are epistolary novels. However, in modern times, the form has seen some kind of decline, and the art of letter writing itself has been diminished, and now we are in the time of emails and all. So these kind of novels are no more present nowadays. Okay, so let us move to our next one, theme. Theme traditionally means a kind of recurrent element of the subject matter. Theme is not merely the subject, but the text's central idea about the subject. Now that's the difference between theme and subject. Without a theme, a work would appear scattered, and without a unifying principle, allowing endless possibilities of interpretation. So, theme binds the entire development of the plot. Theme is expressed through recurrence of certain events, images, or through certain symbols. It is different from the subject because theme is a comment, insight, or say observation of subject matter. Let me give you some example. The subject, imagine the subject of a poem may be a flower, but its theme is a commentary on the fleeting nature of existence. It's not the flower. It's the commentary on the fleeting nature of existence. All works have not a theme, especially those like detective stories, which are written primarily to entertain people or the reader. It is also distinguished from motif. I mean, theme can be differentiated from motif, which is the term motif generally refers to the unifying elements of an artistic work. Let me give you some examples so that you can understand the things better. The theme of Othello is jealousy. Theme of Hamlet is indecision or delay. Theme of King Lear is ingratitude. Theme of Macbeth is the vaulting ambition. These are the examples. The theme of Riders to the Sea is the conflict between man and nature. Synge's Riders to the Sea. So you can understand theme through examples also. Okay, then let us move to our last literary terms for today's class. It is subplot. Now all of us must know what is a plot. There is a famous writer named Gerald Prince who in his A Dictionary of Narratology defines subplot as a series of incidents coincident with but subordinate to the main plot. So subplots are subordinate to the main plot. Subplot is the subsidiary or secondary plot in a fiction or drama. For example, if your main plot is the honors examination, your subplot is the subsidiary examination, but you have to pass in both to fulfill your exam, to complete your exam, to get your degree. So, for a successful novel or successful fiction, both main plot and subplot are essential, are necessary. So, subplot is the subsidiary or secondary plot in fiction or drama that runs parallelly to the main plot and also related to it. For example, Richard Bensley Sheridan's The School for Scandal. The main plot is connected to the Surface Brothers, where the interaction between Peter Teasle or Lady Teasle comprises the subplot. Another example, very common example from Pride and Prejudice, the main plot is the Darcy and Elizabeth's relationship, and along with we have the subplot of Jane Bingley's relationship and Lydia Wickham's relationship. Okay, so with this, I am sure I can overcome. You have understood many of the important literary terms. If you want to know about some other literary terms related to fiction or prose or poem, you can mention it in the comment section. Thank you.